You shut the computer down. You step out through the office door and into the evening air. Your body has arrived outside the building. Your mind has not quite followed yet. If you are early in your career, there is a quiet fear that maybe something today did not go quite right. If you carry a bigger title, there is a heavier feeling that everything still somehow depends on you. Wherever you stand on that ladder, something invisible still rides home with you. Not papers, not your laptop, something with no shape you were ever taught to notice. Notice what happens on the train or behind the wheel on the highway. Some sentence from today keeps circling back through your mind on its own. You get home. Maybe you are alone in your room. Maybe friends are around you. Maybe it is only a simple dinner in front of you. And still, some part of you has not fully arrived. Notice the small flinch in your chest the moment a notification sounds. Here is the stranger part. Even on a night when the phone stays completely silent, some quiet voice still asks whether an email from your manager is waiting somewhere unseen. So you check the phone again, not because you need to, because some part of you cannot quite stop. This is not ordinary tiredness. It sits closer to a kind of quiet captivity. No one is holding you there by force, and yet some part of you has not been able to walk fully free. Most people explain this the same way. Too much work, a difficult culture. So they rush home the moment the day ends. They try to force their mind onto something else. But the mind is not fully let go, which leaves a question worth sitting with. If it is not really the size of the workload, then what exactly is it that never lets you all the way out? The answer is not in the work itself. It is in something quieter you carry inside you every single day. Something you have never really turned to look at directly. That quiet voice asking whether an email is waiting for you. That is not really about the email. Ask yourself honestly what happens in your chest on a day when you finish something well and someone actually notices. There is a small lift, a brief sense that you matter. Now ask what happens on a day when you finish just as much, but nobody sees it. Nobody says a word. Something in you quietly deflates, as if the task itself was never really the point. As if what you were actually chasing all along was proof that you are worth something. This is not a flaw in you. It is simply how people are built. We look for safety through being useful, through being needed, through being seen by the people around us. Somewhere along the way, without ever deciding it out loud, many of us signed a quiet agreement with ourselves. If I keep performing well, if nothing falls through the cracks, then I am safe. Then I matter. Once that agreement sits quietly in the background of your mind, rest stops feeling like rest. Rest starts to feel like risk. Because if you are not producing something, a quiet voice inside starts asking who you even are without it. This is why the body cannot fully settle even after the laptop is shut. It is not really guarding against unfinished tasks. It is guarding against something older. The fear of being replaceable. The fear of matching to no one. Picture yourself on the train home, or behind the wheel in traffic, and somehow your mind is already rehearsing what you will say tomorrow if someone questions your work. Already defending a version of yourself that has not even been attacked yet. Or picture lying in bed, the room dark, and still your mind is replaying a comment your manager made hours earlier, turning it over, searching for what it might have meant, as if solving it tonight could somehow protect you tomorrow. None of this happens because you enjoy the discomfort. It happens because somewhere inside you, work has quietly fused with identity. Not I have a job, but I am my job. And when a job becomes identity, every unfinished task stops feeling like an item on a list. It starts to feel like a threat to your own existence. This is why willpower alone rarely fixes it. Many people try to solve this with a rule. No work thoughts after a certain hour. Phone away during dinner. A clean line drawn firmly in the sand. For a night or two it seems to hold. Then something strange happens. The mind does not grow quieter. It grows louder, more restless, as if it is fighting to be let back in. Doubt, which raises a question worth sitting with. If discipline alone could solve this, most people would have solved it years ago. So why does the mind resist a boundary that is clearly meant to protect it? The answer has very little to do with laziness or a lack of self-control. It has to do with what your mind believes will happen the moment it finally lets go. Somewhere underneath the surface, a quiet belief has been running the whole time. If I stop thinking about it, something will fall apart. If I let go even for one evening, I will lose control of something important. Which brings us to the real question underneath everything you have felt so far. Is that belief actually true? Is anything truly still in your hands once you have walked out of that building? Or have you been trying this whole time to hold on to something that was never really yours to hold in the first place? That question deserves a real answer. So let us look closely at what actually happens inside your mind during those quiet replaying moments. Picture yourself back at your desk long after the actual meeting has ended. The conversation is over. Everyone has moved on. Except you have not moved on. You are replaying the exact sentence someone said, turning it over, searching for a hidden meaning that may not even exist. This process feels productive while it is happening. It feels like you are solving something, preparing for something, protecting yourself from something. But look closer at what is actually being produced. No new information appears. No email gets rewritten. No decision gets made. The situation itself does not change even slightly. All that changes is your body. Your shoulders tighten. Your breathing shortens. Your evening quietly disappears into a conversation that already ended hours ago. This is what psychologists call rumination. And here is the part most people miss. Rumination is not really about the problem in front of you. It is a mental strategy your mind uses when it feels unsafe about something it cannot fully control. Somewhere deep in human wiring, there is an old assumption that thinking about a danger long enough will eventually produce safety. If I go over this enough times, I will catch the thing I missed. If I imagine every version of tomorrow's conversation tonight, nothing will be able to surprise me. It is a reasonable strategy for a wild animal scanning a dark forest for a predator. It is a much less reasonable strategy for a grown adult lying in bed at 11 at night replaying a comment a colleague made about a spreadsheet. But your nervous system does not fully know the difference. It treats an unresolved email the same way it once treated an unresolved threat, which means the alarm keeps ringing long after the actual danger, if there ever really was one, has already passed. Notice what this actually cost you. Picture lying in the dark tonight, the ceiling above you. Tomorrow's meeting has not happened yet. The email has not been read yet. Nothing has actually gone wrong yet. And still your body is spending its energy tonight as if it already had. You are not being harmed by tomorrow. You are being harmed by a rehearsal of tomorrow that is happening entirely inside your own head. Here is the quiet contradiction sitting underneath all of this. The very thing your mind is doing to try to protect you is the thing draining you. Rumination promises control. It never actually delivers it. It only delivers exhaustion dressed up as vigilance. You finish the replaying. Nothing has been solved. And yet somehow you feel as if you did something important. As if skipping the replay would have meant carelessness. As if letting it go would have meant you stopped caring. This is the trap worth naming clearly. Somewhere along the way you came to believe that thinking about a problem is the same thing as handling it. That worry is a form of responsibility. That if you stop turning it over in your mind, something bad will slip through unnoticed. Which brings something uncomfortable into view. If none of this replaying actually changes tomorrow's outcome, then what exactly are you protecting by continuing to do it every single night? And if the real answer has very little to do with solving anything, then perhaps the question is not how to think about the problem more carefully. Perhaps the question is what you have quietly been getting wrong about what is actually yours to hold on to in the first place. That question about what is actually yours to hold changes everything once you sit with it honestly. So let us look at what Stoic thinking actually reveals here. Not as a rule to memorize, as a distinction that quietly changes how a mind operates. There is a simple sorting that ancient thinkers noticed long before modern psychology gave it a name. Some things in life sit entirely within your hand. Your effort, your attention, your choices in this exact moment. And other things sit entirely outside your hand. Another person's mood, a decision made in a meeting you were not part of, what your manager thinks about a report after you have already submitted it. Most suffering does not come from facing hard things. It comes from quietly treating something in the second category as if it belonged in the first. Picture the version of you at your desk replaying that meeting. What you are actually trying to control in that moment is not the meeting. It already happened. You are trying to control how it will be remembered, how you will be judged, what will be said about you when you are not in the room. None of that has ever been in your hands. Not tonight, not tomorrow, not ever. This is not resignation. This is not telling yourself nothing matters. It is something closer to honesty about where your actual power begins and ends. Your effort today was yours. Your intention was yours. The outcome that grows out of other people's opinions, timing, and circumstances was never fully yours to begin with. It only felt that way because caring about something and controlling something quietly got confused inside your mind. Here is where the confusion usually happens without anyone noticing. Somewhere along the way, thinking about a problem started to feel like the same thing as handling it. But turning tomorrow's meeting over in your mind tonight is not preparation. It is your own imagination quietly building a second workplace inside your own house. A version of the office that never closes, where you are still present, still on shift, long after the actual building has locked its doors. Notice what this means about where your evening actually goes. It is not lost to your job. It is lost to a rehearsal of your job that only exists inside your own head. The exhaustion you feel at 11 at night was never demanded by your employer. It was quietly volunteered by a part of you that still believes vigilance equals safety. There is an old observation that fits this exactly. A person is rarely troubled by what has actually happened. They are troubled far more by what they imagine might happen, or by what they believe a moment meant. The event ends in minutes. The story your mind builds about the event can run for hours, sometimes for years. This is not about pretending the feeling is not real. The tightness in your chest is real. The worry is real. What Stoic reasoning offers is not the demand to feel nothing. It is something quieter than that. Feel what rises honestly without pretending it away. Then look clearly at what part of it was ever within your control to begin with. And once that becomes clear, choose deliberately where your attention goes next, rather than letting the old alarm system choose it for you. This is sometimes described as building an inner room that nothing outside you can fully enter uninvited. Not a wall against feeling. A steadiness that stands underneath the feeling. You still notice the sting of an unfair comment. You still feel the pressure of an unfinished task. But you are no longer required to hand your whole evening over to it. Here is where this becomes something more than a nice idea to agree with for a moment and forget by morning. Understanding this distinction while sitting calmly right now is not the hard part. The hard part comes tomorrow evening, the instant your phone lights up with your manager's name on the screen, or the instant a thought about an unfinished task pushes its way back into your mind while you are sitting at dinner. In that exact moment, will you know how to actually use this? Or will the old pattern simply take over again the way it always has? That is where this has to go next. Understanding a distinction is one thing. Living it at the exact moment your phone lights up is another thing entirely. So let us walk through what that moment can actually look like. Picture the instant your workday technically ends. Maybe it is closing the laptop. Maybe it is stepping through the office door. Maybe it is simply glancing at the clock and realizing the hours are done. For most people, this moment passes completely unmarked. The body moves on to the next physical location. The mind does not receive any actual signal that something has changed. This is worth noticing closely. You would never expect a stage play to end without the curtain falling, without some clear signal to both the actors and the audience that the scene is now finished. And yet most people end their working day with no signal at all. No curtain, no clear line, just a slow bleed from one hour into the next. This is where a small, deliberate action becomes surprisingly powerful. Not because the action itself holds any magic, but because a mind that has spent years without a clear boundary needs something physical to teach it where one now exists. Change. Consider the simple act of physically closing a bag or changing out of the clothes you wore that day, or even just standing at the doorway for one breath before stepping inside your home. The specific action matters far less than the consistency of it. What matters is that your mind begins to associate this one small motion with a clear, repeated message. The working day has ended. What comes next belongs to something else. Notice what this is not. It is not a productivity hack designed to help you work more efficiently tomorrow. It is not a trick to feel calmer for its own sake. It is a quiet way of telling the part of you that still stands guard that the shift has actually ended and it is now safe to stand down. Now picture the commute home. This is often where the mind is most vulnerable because the body is in motion but not yet occupied with anything new. A thought about an unfinished task rises on its own. Maybe it is a sentence a colleague said. Maybe it is a task still sitting unfinished on a list somewhere. The instinct most people have here is to fight the thought, to push it away forcefully, to tell themselves not to think about work right now. But forcing a thought out rarely works because resistance itself keeps the thought active. What quietly works better is something much gentler. Simply naming what is happening. That is a work thought. It is understandable that it appeared. It does not need to be solved right now. This small act of labeling changes the relationship you have with the thought, even if the thought itself does not fully disappear. You are no longer being pulled underneath it. You are simply watching it pass by, the way you might watch a car go by on the street outside your window. It is there. It is real. It does not require you to follow it out the door. Out here is what makes this different from simply suppressing feeling, which we have already said is not the goal. You are not telling yourself the thought is wrong or that it should not exist. You are simply recognizing which room it belongs in and choosing, on purpose, not to invite it into this one. This is a small act, repeated daily, rather than a single dramatic decision made once. And this is precisely why it works differently than the all-or-nothing rules most people try first. There is no instruction here to never think about work again. There is only a quiet, repeated practice of noticing where a thought belongs and gently returning your attention to where you actually are. This still leaves an important question unanswered. Awareness and labeling can soften a thought in the moment it arrives. But thoughts are only part of what pulls people back into work mode after hours. There is also the matter of what is allowed to reach you in the first place, and what limits you are willing to hold even when someone else expects otherwise. That is where we need to go next. What reaches you after hours is not simply a matter of willpower. It is a matter of what doors you have quietly left open without ever deciding to. Consider the notification that arrives during dinner. The sound itself is small. A short vibration, a brief flash of light on a table. And yet notice what happens in your chest the instant you hear it. There is often a small jolt, a tightening before your mind has even processed what the message contains. This reaction did not appear by accident. It was built, notification by notification, over months and years of a phone that never fully stopped being a workplace. Here is something worth sitting with honestly. Somewhere along the way, being available at every hour quietly became confused with being valuable. As if answering instantly proved something about your worth as an employee, as a colleague, as a person who could be relied upon. But notice what this actually asks of you. It asks you to remain on duty in a role that was only ever meant to occupy a portion of your day for the entirety of your life outside it as well. No one can actually do this indefinitely. Not because of weakness, because the body and mind were never built for constant alertness. A guard who never sleeps eventually cannot tell the difference between an actual threat and an ordinary sound. This is not a flaw in you. It is simply what happens to any system asked to run without rest. This is where a deliberate limit becomes an act of care rather than an act of defiance. Turning off notifications tied to work outside of working hours is not a rejection of your job. It is closer to something a reasonable person does for any tool that was never designed to run without pause. You would not expect a phone to hold its charge forever without ever being plugged in. You are not built to hold constant availability without cost either. Notice what fear tends to rise here because it is worth naming honestly. The fear usually sounds something like this. What if something urgent happens and I am not there to catch it? What if someone needed me and I was unreachable? This fear deserves to be taken seriously rather than dismissed because it comes from a genuine wish to be responsible. But look closely at what is actually being protected against. In almost every ordinary working life, a genuine emergency serious enough to require instant response outside of working hours is rare. What actually happens far more often is a routine question, a minor update, something that could easily wait until the next working day without any real consequence. The fear is real. The danger it is guarding against is, most of the time, much smaller than it feels in the moment. This same reasoning extends beyond notifications and into something quieter, which is the boundary you hold with your own mind. Picture yourself sitting at dinner, and a thought arrives about something that will need to be resolved tomorrow. The instinct is to treat that thought as urgent simply because it appeared urgently. But an honest question can meet it instead. Is thinking about this right now, at this table, actually going to change anything about how it unfolds tomorrow? Almost always the honest answer is no. This is not about pretending the task does not matter. It is about recognizing that caring about something and mentally rehearsing it right now are two different things, and only one of them actually helps. The task will still be there tomorrow, fully intact, whether or not you spend tonight's dinner thinking about it. Here is what becomes possible once these limits are held consistently, rather than only when convenient. The mind slowly begins to trust that after hours truly means after hours. Not because a rule was enforced with force, but because the pattern was repeated often enough that the nervous system finally believed it. This trust does not build overnight. It builds the same way any boundary builds credibility with a person who has tested it before. Slowly and only through consistency. This still leaves one part of the picture unfinished. A boundary held with the outside world only goes so far if the inside of your own mind has no matching structure. There is still the matter of what you say to yourself in the quiet hour before sleep, when no notification is asking anything of you at all, and yet your own thoughts still are. That is where we need to go next. That quiet hour before sleep is where the real test usually happens, because nothing external is asking anything of you at all anymore. It is only your own mind left alone with itself. Picture the last few minutes before you actually try to fall asleep. The room is dark. The day's obligations have technically ended, and yet a list quietly begins assembling itself behind your eyes. An unfinished report, a message you still need to send, a conversation you are not sure you handled well. Notice what these thoughts have in common. They are almost never about tonight. They are about tomorrow, arriving early and uninvited, asking to be solved right now, at an hour when nothing can actually be done about any of them. This is where a very simple practice earns its place, not because it is clever, but because it gives the mind something concrete to do with what it is holding. In the minutes before you leave work, take just a few minutes to write down, in plain words, what is still unfinished. Not to solve it, simply to place it somewhere outside your own head. A piece of paper, a notes app, anywhere that is not the inside of your mind at 11 at night. Here is why this small act matters more than it appears to. The mind does not actually need to solve a problem to feel some relief from it. It often only needs to feel that the problem has not been forgotten. A great deal of nighttime rumination is not really about finding an answer. It is about a quiet fear that if you stop thinking about something, it will slip away unnoticed and cause harm later. Writing it down answers that fear directly. Says clearly this has not been forgotten. It has simply been moved somewhere it can be picked up again tomorrow, at the hour when picking it up will actually be useful. Notice the relief that tends to follow this small act. Not because the task disappeared. It has not. It is still sitting there waiting for tomorrow exactly as it was. What changed is not the task. What changed is that your mind no longer has to carry it alone through the night, standing guard over something that was never going anywhere in the first place. That there is a second, quieter practice that works alongside this one, and it has nothing to do with tasks at all. It has to do with a single sentence said honestly to yourself, near the end of the day. Something close to this. My worth today did not come only from what I finished at work. I'm also someone's family member, someone's friend, a person with a life that exists outside of any job title. Notice how different this sentence is from empty positivity. It is not telling you that work does not matter. It is simply placing work back into its proper size, rather than allowing it to quietly expand until it fills the entire frame of who you believe yourself to be. This sentence tends to matter most on the exact nights when it feels least deserved. The nights when something went wrong, when a task stayed unfinished, when a comment from someone stung more than it should have. Those are precisely the nights when the old pattern tries hardest to convince you that your value is currently in question. And those are precisely the nights when this sentence is worth saying slowly and meaning it. None of these practices are large. None of them ask for a dramatic overhaul of your life or your schedule. A brief physical signal at the end of the working day. A gentle label placed on a wandering thought during the commute home. A boundary held around notifications and around your own attention at the dinner table. A few minutes of writing before you leave and one honest sentence before you sleep. Here is what is easy to miss about practices this small. Their size has nothing to do with their effect, if they are repeated with real consistency rather than tried once and abandoned. A single evening of doing this will barely be noticeable. But something different begins to happen once these small acts are repeated night after night, week after week, without needing to be perfect at any one of them. Something in how you carry your days themselves may start to feel different. Not because the work changed. Not because the pressure disappeared. Something quieter than that. Something worth sitting with fully once we get there next. Something quieter begins to happen after weeks of these small, repeated acts. Not a single dramatic morning where everything suddenly feels resolved. Something slower. Something you almost do not notice until you look back and realize a shift has already taken place. Picture an ordinary evening several weeks from now. A notification arrives during dinner. And notice this time what does not happen. The old jolt does not fully arrive. The chest does not tighten in quite the same way. Not because you stopped caring about your work. Because some part of you now trusts that this moment does not require your full attention the instant it appears. This is worth naming clearly because it is easy to mistake for indifference, and it is not that at all. You have not become someone who cares less. You have become someone whose attention is no longer hijacked by every small signal simply because it is loud or immediate. During working hours, you are still fully present, fully engaged, fully invested in what is in front of you. Outside those hours, something else now holds equal weight. Your evening, your family, your own quiet company with yourself. Neither one is stealing from the other anymore. This is the shift worth sitting with honestly. It is not that the job became smaller in importance. It is that you stopped being the only thing standing between a job and the rest of your life. There is now a boundary doing some of that work, so you no longer have to hold the entire line by sheer force of will every single evening. Picture yourself sitting alone in a quiet room weeks into this practice. No task list running in the background. No rehearsal of tomorrow's meeting playing on repeat. Simply sitting with nothing to prove and nowhere else your mind feels it needs to be. Notice how unfamiliar that stillness might feel at first. Notice too that unfamiliar is not the same as wrong. Something else tends to shift alongside this, and it has to do with how you relate to the parts of your day that used to feel like unfinished business. A task left incomplete no longer immediately reads as a threat to your worth as a person. It simply reads as a task. Still real. Still something to return to. But no longer something your entire sense of self is quietly hanging from. This is not the same as no longer caring whether you do good work. It is something closer to caring about your work from a place that is steady, rather than caring about it from a place that is afraid. A person operating from fear works hard because something terrible might happen if they stop. A person operating from steadiness works hard because the work itself matters to them, and then closes the laptop and means it. Notice what this means for the people sitting across the table from you in the evening. The version of you they used to be half present, eyes drifting toward a phone on the table, is not the version showing up anymore. What replaces it is not perfection. There will still be nights when a thought about work slips back in uninvited, but it no longer owns the whole evening the way it once did. It passes through and you remain where you actually are. This is what a quiet transformation actually looks like, and it rarely announces itself the way people expect it to. There is no single morning where you wake up and declare yourself changed. There is only, gradually, less of the old bracing, less of the old vigilance, less of the quiet fear that stepping back for even one evening might cost you something important. In its place is something that does not need to shout to be real. A steadiness that simply holds evening after evening without asking to be noticed. This steadiness will be tested. Not in the calm weeks, but in the difficult ones still ahead. A harder deadline. A more difficult manager. A season at work that asks more of you than any small ritual seems able to answer. The real question is not whether you have learned something useful tonight. It is whether this steadiness can hold its shape when the pressure returns, and what you will need to remember on the exact nights it tries hardest to slip away. There is a quiet distinction worth sitting with as we close this. Leaving work at work is not the same as caring less about your work. It is not carelessness to walk away from your desk with something still unfinished. It is not disloyalty to let an evening simply be an evening. If anything, the opposite is true. A person who can genuinely rest is the same person who returns the next morning with something real left to give. A mind that never stops running has less to offer, not more, no matter how long it stays switched on. Notice what this means for how you measure a day well spent. For a long time, maybe the measure was simple. How much did I finish? How many tasks disappeared from the list? How impressive did today look from the outside? There is another measure sitting quietly underneath that one, easy to miss because it does not announce itself as loudly. Did I stay present for the parts of today that mattered outside of work? Did I show up fully for the people sitting across from me at dinner? Did I let myself actually rest rather than performing rest while still standing guard? Picture tonight specifically, not some distant future night once everything has been figured out. Tonight, when you finally lie down and let your body settle into the mattress. Notice what is actually resting on the pillow beside your head. Is it simply your own mind, quiet and unaccompanied? Or is it still crowded with tomorrow's unfinished meeting, an email not yet answered, a conversation still being replayed for the 10th time? That there is no need to force an answer to that question tonight. It is enough to simply notice it honestly without judgment either way. Noticing is where every one of these small shifts actually begins. Not in a single decision made once and never revisited. In a quiet habit of checking in with yourself evening after evening and gently asking what you are still carrying that was never actually yours to hold. Think of an office at the end of a long day. The lights switched off one by one. The desks emptied. The unfinished files simply left where they sit, waiting patiently for tomorrow, unbothered by the dark and the silence surrounding them. They do not stay awake worrying about themselves. They simply wait exactly as they are for the next working day to begin. Your mind deserves the same quiet permission tonight. Let it rest exactly where it is, without needing to finish anything more before it is allowed to. The unfinished parts of today will still be there tomorrow, waiting patiently the same way they always have. Your life was never meant to be measured only by what your job asked of you. It is larger than that, quieter than that, steadier than that. And tonight, that is enough to simply rest inside.